It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.
Annoy you or play some kind of game with MakingStarWars.com. With MakingStarWars.com.
No, you guy.
Hello, everyone. I am Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net. And today, me and my buddy Rob have a very special guest, as you may know if you're a Star Wars fan, Mr. Ahmed Best. How's it going, Ahmed?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really, really good, honestly. I got to be honest with you, man. I am a huge fan of yours. I have been following you since I was 17 years old now, and look at me, I'm an old man.
But older.
But a little bit, yeah, and yeah, dude, so happy to actually speak with you. I met you briefly as a young man at Celebration 1 in 1999.
Yeah, that was fun.
In Denver. That was a good time. I was only 19, but boy, did I party hard after the Jar Jar Jam. I'm not gonna lie. That was a good time, dude.
That was good.
Yeah. Did you are you still involved with doing music and stuff like that? You still jamming?
Still playing, still writing, still composing, still jamming with people. It's not as it's not my main thing anymore. Like back then, it was just like it was kind of neck and neck, acting and playing music. But nowadays, you know, the writing, directing, producing, and acting thing has kind of taken over. Music is always there, and I'm always writing music for the things that I'm doing. But performing like I did back in '99, not so much anymore.
Right.
Unfortunately, I miss it though. I really miss it.
Yeah. I mean, it really was a good time. I would if at one of these celebrations they ever want to do a Jar Jar Jam too, I'm in.
Boom.
Yeah. So today we have you here because we're going to talk a bit about Echo Theater Company's Ascension. Ascension, which is an interactive sci-fi futuristic cyberplay. And the little blurb that I got, it says, in this Echo commissioned futuristic cyberplay that strikes at the heart of our assumptions about faith, memory, and reality, Rebel, played by Sherelle Mack, is trapped inside a long, narrow pod. Not a pod racer, guys. Nobody knows she's in there. Nobody but you, the audience. For some strange reason, your minds and hers are physically linked, and only you can help her escape. But who is she? How did you become connected in this way? All right, so that sounds pretty wild. So is the audience a part of the actual like story that as it goes on? Wow, can you explain that to me? Because that sounds like next level.
Yeah, it is. You know, I've always believed that live theater is where I started, right? I started on Broadway, doing Stomp and traveling all over the world and touring companies and you know, playing music on stage. Live theater has always been the thing. And then, you know, movies and film and television took over, but there are elements that are always very similar to both of them that I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to blend. And then these new immersive experiences started coming up, like things like augmented reality, virtual reality, and escape rooms, right? There are all of these forms of like immersive entertainment. And theater has always been the foundation of all of those things. You know, I work in a bunch in the VR space with this company out of San Diego called Afterville, and they're on the AltSpace platform, Microsoft AltSpace platform that you can get on Oculus Quest, and you can get the desktop version, but it's better with the headset, right? And the geometry of virtual reality is based off of theater performance because it's a three-dimensional space, not a two-dimensional space. So theater has a vocabulary that really lends itself to immersive entertainment. And so what hasn't happened yet is the ability to kind of really blend cinema language, theater language, and augmented reality language, virtual reality language into a show. So the audience, like in an escape room, has to respond to Sherelle, who plays Rebel. And, she's going to ask the audience to help her. And we'll see if they do. A lot of times in old school theater, you walk into a theater and it's just like, please turn off your cell phones and don't speak and, don't unwrap any candy. This play, it's just like, no, keep your cell phones on. You might use them. And you still can't unwrap any candy, but there's definitely parts of the play where you are going to have to be involved. And that's not everybody's cup of tea, to be
Right.
honest. Like, some people like to just have a passive experience. But I think we have to do more of this. I think we have to do more immersive experiences and more interactive plays and really just turn theater into something that can support the 21st century, And this is
Yeah.
honestly, this is the thing that I got from George. Like, George was always forward thinking. George was always thinking about what is the future of things? What is going to happen in 20 years, 40 years, 100 years? And with Phantom Menace, every cinema technique that is used today was in the Phantom Menace.
Right.
To be prescient like that, to have that type of thinking is, what makes George so incredibly unique. And I got addicted to that. So I've always been like, how is this going to work 20 years from now? Like, in this play, there are a lot of screen elements, right? There's a lot of cinema language, and we blend augmented reality. We have an AI that's functional, a functional AI in the play, as well as cinema language that we blend into live theater. And this is what theater could be, if
Right.
we put half the budgets that we put into major motion pictures to a live experience, we can get some really exciting work, and there'll be more people doing it,
Yeah, as a director, and with that kind of I don't know, improv isn't probably not the right word, but with that anything can happen element to it, and that how did you go about tackling that?
Well, improv is definitely a big part of it.
Okay.
And the writing, Darryl Watson, who wrote the play, the writing plays a big part in it as well. So there are ways that we have to move the audience into giving us the answers that we need in order for the play to continue. And that's something that is very cinematic, right? When you're watching something on screen, the camera moves you to where it needs you to go, right? On screen, that's called eye trace, right? On stage, it's called throwing focus, right? You look at the person and then everybody looks at the person talking, right? And
Right.
so we do that a lot. Like, we use the screens as ways to control the eye trace and get the answers out, subconsciously out of the audience that we need to move the play forward.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty rad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be hitting it up because I'm in Southern California, so I'm
Dope.
looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on through.
Yeah. How long did it take you to prep this? Was this prepped all during the pandemic? Was this started before pandemic?
We started writing the play or conceptualizing the idea, and Darryl wrote it right at the end of the stay-at-home orders.
Okay.
Right? And the pandemic is a heavy influence to this work because the work is about Rebel trying to figure out who she is and what's real, and subsequently the audience is trying to figure out what's real. And that's what we were all going through during COVID and during the lockdown. Like, during the lockdown, I had several, instances where I would just stop and go, is this real? Like, this doesn't even feel real right now. I can't believe this is happening. This is so crazy, when you can get from, Hollywood to the beach in 10 minutes. That's incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like, it never happened. So there was this alternate reality kind of happening during the pandemic. And then, of course, all the political upheaval in the United States around the election and what people would actually believe. And then, the vaccine hesitancy and all of the misinformation, it
Hmm.
all is just like manipulation and digital manipulation, right?
Right.
All of that had influenced this play. There's a character named Caretaker who is part of the AI program, and Caretaker manipulates Rebel into thinking she's something she's not.
Okay.
And that is 100% what happened during the pandemic. You know, we went from trusting the CDC wholeheartedly to not trusting them at all, based
Right.
on words flying by at digital speeds. So all of that is part of this, all of that inspired this.
Yeah, I find that fascinating in the sense that in the modern world that we are unfortunately at times living in, you very well may be super wrong about who you think you are or what you're doing or what you're involved in,
Mhm.
and having to sort of come to terms with that. Like I've had family members who I feel like were very much on the wrong side of history this last 2 years, who've come around,
Yeah.
and watching them try and contend with that, slipping back and going forward, and it's been pretty wild.
Yeah.
And in that sense, like if it not to spoil the production, but does is this a difficult thing for Rebel to accept? Is there any kind of is that a struggle that we see unfold, or is it very instantaneous for her, where like she sees red pill, blue pill, oh, I took the right one, now I know, kind of situation?
No, everything is this really weird shade of gray. Everything exists in these shadows. And it really is challenging for Rebel because, she is a character who's finding out who she is as well as what is this world at the same time. And she doesn't have very many people to believe. So she's asking the audience, like, where are we? What year is this? What's happening right now? What's happening in the world? I don't remember anything that, I only know what you're telling me. Right. And so she just
Right.
goes through this journey of like, who do I trust?
Wow, yeah, that sounds pretty rad. I wish there were productions like this going on like Oculus Quest. You know what I mean? Like if I could just put on my Quest and go to shows like this. I hope that's where we see the medium kind of moving forward.
Yeah, that's what's coming. That's what I've been working on. I have my partner who did the AI software build and the projection, Jesse Gilbert. He and
Mhm.
I have a studio in Hollywood, and what we're trying to do is this production is like the first of almost like a proof of concept production of what could be done in this kind of space. And like you said, we work with AR, VR quite often, and very
Mhm.
shortly, Apple glasses are coming, right? Where they
Right.
have AR, and in on the iPhone, you have LiDAR, which is three-dimensional space capture.
Mhm.
So when you have those things at your disposal, the LiDAR is going to be in the Apple glasses. So you'll be able to put on the Apple glasses or put on a headset and not just watch Ascension, but you can stand on any part of the stage and experience Ascension, like standing next to Rebel, standing right in front of her. That's the goal. That's where we can be in a very short amount of time. And this play, much like Phantom Menace, is already designed to be that. You know, now
Mhm.
we have to wait for technology to come in and be as excited about it as we are, and start investing some time and money in a space, an XR space that is theater driven, in, LED panels and visualization tools and LiDAR in the room so you can, point cloud and 3D map the entire space. And that stuff, we have the technology to do it now, but everybody's like looking at it for autonomous vehicles and things that have nothing to do with asking these philosophical questions on a stage. So I look at the technology and I'm just like, this would be a great tool to be able to do things like that, and not just make sure that Waymo or Tesla doesn't bump into you when you walk on the street.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting, I think, future for theater on that front, especially when you consider the fact that you could almost have people acting in their bedrooms
Mhm.
using VR, and people who never had a chance to do it in high school, and then discover all of a sudden, you know what, I'm really good at this, and I really love theater, and the ability for small groups of people to start putting on productions and things like that. Like, I find that super fascinating. Like, one of the things I've always, since I started following George Lucas as a teenager, and digital democratization and things like that are just super fascinating concepts. And I love what it can mean for theater, because I enjoy it. I think the live experience is really, really good, and it's cool to be in a room with people, but it's not always possible.
Yeah, I mean, with your iPhone now, the iPhone 12, the iPhone 13, you can face capture better than anything we had in 97 when we were shooting Phantom Menace. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You can do that now. And if you integrate that face capture with projection onto a screen, you can have real time animated avatars playing with live action people on stage. Like, it's
Right.
possible now, you
Right.
know? And that's part of what we're doing in Ascension.
Hmm.
Um, but theater needs more funding. And imagine the kinds of talent that you would attract to theater if you can do this. Like, imagine George Lucas directing a play, right?
Hmm.
Because he can realize, Otto Gunga that you have behind you, right? Because
Yeah.
he can realize that on a stage. When we did Phantom Menace, Otto Gunga was mostly green. But then there were these set pieces that were built, and it was enough for us to get us in. The set piece is really for us, the actors. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Most of it now is XR, extended reality. What John Favreau and Filoni do with The Mandalorian, that's mostly XR, right? It's not green screen,
Right.
you know? That can be used in a theater with live actors, and you can create an experience and shoot it at the same time and map it with 3D capture. The experience could just be enormous. I mean, you can have live action Mandalorian. We're like theme park shows that kind of did this, right? There was like Avengers Live. They did like live tracking and projection mapping onto objects to make them look like cars and stuff. And like the Captain America on stage would lift this box and it would look like a car and they'd throw it. And it was cool. But that type of technology with actors who are doing, who are playing in plays written that are just as heavy as anything that, you know, August Wilson or any modern playwright would write. It's exciting. We really wanted the sci-fi space because I'm a huge science fiction fan. Daryl is a huge science fiction fan, and you can create a world in science fiction that doesn't have to be realistic. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you can assume a lot when it comes to science fiction. So there's a lot of space. There's a lot of headroom that you can use to create, environment. So that's why we chose science fiction. And the science fiction genre is a really great genre for this kind of theater.
Yeah. Yeah. So is Ahmed Best in 2021 what happens when you send a guy from Stomp to ILM at 24 years old, or whatever?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I've always been this guy.
Yeah.
I was an enormous comic book geek. I was a computer geek, music geek. Anything that I did, I kind of geeked out on it. Back in the day when I was on the AV squad, everybody thought I was corny, right? But now,
Mhm.
like, it's the AV squad that runs the world. Like, you can't tell me Jeff Bezos wasn't on the AV squad.
It's true. Yeah.
Elon
Yeah.
Musk was definitely on the AV squad. Like, that
Without a
dude set
doubt.
up the projector. he set up a projector or two. You know, he put microphones.
There's got to
on the
be
stage.
footage out there. There's got to be footage of Bezos watching Kids Incorporated. You know what I mean? Like, going, I can do that. I can do that. You know, like that's possible.
Definitely mic'd up a few actors back in the day.
So, like philosophically speaking, like your career and your life story is really fascinating, and if we talk to Ahmed in 1997, 98, when you were like, I'm about to do the Phantom Menace, I'm about to film the Phantom Menace, you know, it's like you were in Stomp. I think it's Robin Gerland. Was that her name? Gerland sees you is like, hey, come try out. You try out, then you're in the role. And then obviously it's a difficult, you know, mass media, what I like to call edge culture, you know, the guys who want to be edge lords and stuff like that really don't make it fun to be a fan, I think, at that time. It's a little bit better now in some ways, but for that kind of stuff, yeah. But it's like now I think like fans defend each other a bit more. But like in like 1999, when I was like, you know what, I think I think Jar Jar is an endearing character. You know, I really truly believe that. And but you would get kind of I don't know if bullied's the right. I don't want to use bullied because when somebody's just mean to you on the internet, it's not exactly always the same as like being beat up in school or something. But you know, it did come to a point where just like it's not really worth talking about it because people suck. You know, or at least a portion of people suck. And so we end up with you today now, who has gone through all of this crazy mass media, this huge like blow up. You're loved, some ways you're not by some, and all of that. And as I was thinking about this, my question was for you is all art worth making painful?
No. I think pain is an experience that has been over romanticized. I don't think pain is something to be ignored. And I think pain is not the most precise word to use when it comes to making art that has either challenged you or challenged your audience, right? I think at the end of the day, as an artist, ultimately you have to make yourself happy. You know, when you finish what you finish, that sense of accomplishment, that sense of feeling has to be good for you.
Right.
You know, worrying about what other people say and how other people perceive you, it's going to happen. You're human, you know, and it would be disingenuous to say, which is what I was back then, you know, when I said, oh, this doesn't bother me. It hurt, you know, but I think we could look at that hurt and heal from it, right? We can look at that hurt and understand and face it and face what it is and learn from it and use it and use it to be more creative. You know, I don't think I would be the artist that I am today had I not gone through that, because I had to go through it, you know,
right.
And it liberated me in a sense, because I'll never have to face a scrutiny tougher than that. So anything that comes at me will never take me down as deep as I was during that time.
Unless you play Batman. Like, I think that would, because the Batman job seems to be pretty tough, Ahmed.
There's a black Batman in the comics right now, right?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like, I'm just saying that
I'll play Batman. I just won't.
Batman fans are crazy though. Like,
I just don't think like the nipples,
the bat nips.
Like Clooney should have seen that and been like, nipples, guys. Like, who's Batman breastfeeding?
Yeah, I think he was like, I like these. No, but
insults.
But yeah, you know, when it comes to fandom, like, you know, I don't think people suck. You know, I think everybody has an opinion, and those opinions vary.
sure.
And what's really challenging is, social media didn't take over traditional media. Traditional media is still the media of note. But what happens in social media is it is extremely loud, right?
Yeah.
And the harshest voices are the loudest. And once news became entertainment, it thrives off of eyeballs on screen for advertising dollars, right? So they're going to need as many eyeballs as possible. And human beings, the way we are, when we see a threat or we see somebody being threatened, we jump in because it means our survival.
Mhm.
We can go, at least I'm not being killed like that guy. And it's very easy for us. We're herd animals, we're herd creatures, right? We want to
Mhm.
be in groups like us, which is why the fandoms create the fandoms. And because of that herd mentality, because we're herd creatures, if that herd feels attacked, the herd is going to attack back. No one's going to stop and go, wait a minute, guys, we are all of the same family. Maybe we should just relax. Like every time I talk to somebody, and I don't usually respond on Twitter when it comes to, Star Wars or Marvel or anything, which I'm, both very knowledgeable of and big fans of. I
Mhm.
put out there on Twitter, for example, I put out on Twitter that I wanted to play Reed Richards, which I do.
Sure.
I want to
Yeah.
play Reed Richards because I think I'd be a good Reed Richards. I wanted to be Reed Richards as a kid, and the Fantastic Four is a franchise that hasn't been really done, in my opinion, to the best of its ability. Like Reed
Agreed.
Richards is huge in Marvel. Like the
Mhm.
Four Minds: T'Challa, Tony Stark, Victor Von Doom, and Reed Richards. Like those are the four. Those are
Yeah.
the four smartest guys in the Marvel universe, and we haven't seen Reed Richards yet. So I wanted to be Reed Richards, and I put it out there on the Marvel verse. And if anybody knows Kevin Feige, tell him I'm down and I'm available. But all of a sudden, I got all of this stuff back. Was like, oh, we want to play race-specific Reed Richards. I don't think Reed Richards should be black. All of a sudden, it turned into a black versus white argument and not a Reed Richards argument.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the one response that I made was, look, Reed Richards is not black or white. He's a fabricated comic book character. He can be whatever color, right?
Right.
And to be real, there was a multiverse episode of the Fantastic Four where there was a black Reed Richards, right?
Mhm.
But he's a character in a comic book. So it's up to the imagination of the person to make Reed Richards who he wants to be, right? And then this dude wrote back, was just like, no, Reed Richards shouldn't be black, but I love you, man. You're a cool dude. And I was like, yeah, thanks, man. We can disagree. That's all
Mhm.
good. We just don't have
Yeah.
to hate each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can disagree with you and we can still be cool. That's
Yeah.
what discourse is. We can have discourse. What happens is the herd mentality and popular media get a hold of it, and they drive up the conflict because we all know, as storytellers, as filmmakers, conflict gets eyeballs.
For
And
sure.
I don't disparage that. That's the game. I understand that. And I don't hate people. I think people are great.
Yeah.
My brother, I have a twin brother. My brother is always just like, we as human beings just have to realize we're primates just like all the other primates. We're not
Mhm.
that special. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like 1% of our chromosome separates us from, the great apes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's that 1% that's like,
They made a whole movie series about this, really.
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
But
like
at the end of the day, like primates get influenced. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
silverback that is the biggest and the strongest gets to be the leader. That's who we are.
Yeah. No, it is true. The loudest voice is the most heard usually, unfortunately, and whether it's the best or not. But it's also like, I find that stuff's just like so frustrating because it's like Nick Fury. When we were kids, Nick Fury was usually like this big ass white dude with a huge jaw.
He looked like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. Yeah. And now he's Samuel L. Jackson. And yeah, it's fine. You know what I mean? It's completely, it's irrelevant. And it's unfortunate that some people still have that mindset at times. But yeah, but
character matters,
yeah.
character, and Sam embodies that character. You know,
but I like what you were saying though, because it's like when somebody is, I don't know if dumb, ignorant, stupid, I don't know what the word is to use for that. But when they are like that, if you shut them down, if you automatically shame them and do that, then the conversation ends and it's over and they're set in their way now, or they're forced into a corner. And it's like, yeah, we do, I think, have to exercise, we don't have to tolerate pure out stupidity, but we also should really, I think, help people more.
Yeah, I mean, if you think something is that stupid, don't respond. Regardless of who you are, no one likes to be humiliated. No one. We all have to deal with that as an emotion. We have to deal with humiliation, and it doesn't feel good for anyone.
No.
And so I try not to, as best I can, I try not to humiliate people, and I try not to shame people who I believe are misguided. I'm still from the South Bronx. I'm still a fighter. So that part of me is just like, I want to hit, I want to hit back. So I like to acquiesce to my higher self and say, relax, you just don't know. But, I'm a black belt in jujitsu. Sometimes I just want to choke you out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I was not to put you on the spot with that, but I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, man, Ahmed could like totally kick my ass. I wonder if he's ever kicked somebody's ass and been like, you got fucked up by Jar Jar and just walked away.
I'm sure people felt that.
Yeah.
I feel like that should have been a scene in one of those Hangover films, though. Honestly, like they go to Vegas and one of them gets their ass kicked by Ahmed Best. That'd be awesome, right? Or Warwick Davis did that Life is Short series where he played a very different version than himself. I'm like, that would have been a great scene. Like, turns out Ahmed will just roll your ass. Like what? Yeah. I mean, did you guys ever do any moves or anything? Like, I mean, because I was asking Jason about maybe your influences on cinema, and he said you were a big Hong Kong, like the kung fu action films or Drunken Master or anything. Did you do any martial arts moves on the set of like the Phantom Menace or the Star Wars?
Jar Jar is pretty much a Jackie Chan movie. Jackie Chan and Buster Keaton were the two influences physically. Those were my two big influences growing up. Buster Keaton was more George. He really loved Buster Keaton, and we would sit and watch Buster Keaton movies and be like, can you do that? And I was like, yeah. And I would do it. But me, it was all about Jackie Chan. And then, a couple of times me and Ray Park fooled around backstage, in the stunt room. Nothing major. But he would like show me some wushu stuff, and I would show him what I did. But yeah, most of the influence physically was Jackie Chan and Buster Keaton.
When you were doing Revenge of the Sith, I believe it was the Rolling Stone interview. I couldn't find my magazine, so I couldn't pull it up. But you spoke about a cut scene that was filmed where Jar Jar is thanked by Emperor Palpatine for being one of his earliest supporters. My question about that scene, if you can answer it, if it's okay, is what was Jar Jar's response to this? Was Jar Jar like, yeah, dude, thanks, man. I made the right choice? Was Jar Jar like, what have I done? Like, what was?
It was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
According to George, Jar Jar became a politician, and he didn't really know, because he was constantly proving that he could do the job. And everybody thought that he was, the Gungans were a separatist race of people. They didn't know very much about anyone outside of Otto Gunga. And Jar Jar really wanted to be this bridge between people to get people to trust people. But to be honest, he didn't know very much about Naboo. All he knew was Otto Gunga. So he was doing his best. And he didn't know that, Palpatine could be as duplicitous as that. He really took Jar Jar was a very honest character. He took everybody for their word and what they said. And so when, Palpatine is like, thank you, Jar Jar is like, you're welcome, but I think I've been manipulated in some kind of way,
Yeah.
That was the scene.
Yeah, because that was always what I wondered, especially like around the post 2005 time. Before we got to like new books where they started putting Jar Jar in certain little scenes and stuff. I was like, does he just go on to become a bureaucrat? Like, what happens to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
in George's
does.
mind, especially.
Filoni does. He kind of expands it in Clone Wars.
Yeah,
he talks more about Jar Jar in Clone Wars.
Yeah, Jar Jar gets a girlfriend.
An
episode. I was like,
about that.
Yeah, what was that like? Getting going back to a Jar Jar, because I was so happy. Like, what was that episode? The Gungan Jedi or something like that, where you get the Jar Jar gets the robes and everything like that, and has that episode. I was like, I loved it. I love seeing Jar Jar back. I love seeing, and how was it returning to Jar Jar in, what was that, 2008 probably?
Yeah, it was tough, to be honest. I mean, I wasn't really in a place to come back to him yet. As an artist, you always want to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to advance. You're always thinking about what's next and what more. And I never wanted to be stuck in one character for the rest of my life. Like I've always wanted to be that character actor that was in something and people go, man, what's that guy's name again? He's great in everything. Like Chris Cooper. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's like, oh shit, what's that guy? Who is that guy?
Yeah.
He's always good. So that's what I always wanted to be. I wanted to be this chameleon in things. And so it was tough because I was trying to do that. I was trying to like put Jar Jar behind me, but Lucasfilm just kept asking, because they were trying to find other people to do it and no one else could do it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It
was really fun. Actually, it was really fun because of Dave Filoni. Like, he's really a great dude and he's fun to be around. And he loves Star Wars like as much as George.
Yeah. I've talked to him a few times, and and when you talk to him, you're like, okay, this guy is as into this as I am, and it's weird in a good way. But
he's really, really in a heart, true, loving person for Star Wars. He knows the history and really close with George, and he's really about that Star Wars life. Like, now you can have a career in Star Wars. You used to not be able to. You had to wait 20 years for movies. But now there's just like so many things happening that people can you can major in Star Wars at university.
yeah, pretty much. No, and that's like one of the things I think is potentially good for new performers who come into Star Wars. Like when you started, when you did your films, it was like, well, that's it, you guys. And so people had to be like, this is all I get, but it's either it's what I wanted or it's not what I wanted. You're either really happy or not. And like now today, if that happens, you're like, okay, wait to the next one. Just wait to the next one. It's cool.
Yeah. Boba Fett comes out, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's more. There's always just something else. There's something more, which is cool,
I have a quick question.
First. Yes.
Ahmed, sorry. Jason was saying that George picked you up before the shoots on. Did you guys pick you up in the morning for work on the Phantom Menace or anything?
You guys rode to work together. Yeah. What was that like?
I'm fascinated by that. Like,
it was great. I mean, it gave me a chance to like pick his brain on things. I purposely spent a lot of time around him. Purposely. Like, even on my days off, I would just go into set and like sit behind him in a chair and try to be quiet. And then he would always turn around and talk to me. He'd be like, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. This is where it's going. So it was like my film school. And then on the way to work a few times, he would it was like that futurist philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
He predicted, he would talk about, I would rail against reality television. And this was just when there was like 2 shows. Television. He was like, soon most of TV will be reality. And he was not wrong. I mean, the dude has vision, he can really see further. And I picked that up. I learned that from him. I learned how to do that from him. And, we would talk about all of those things. And, you know, one of the things that I do, like a side gig, is I work as a future forecaster. And I have a company called Afro Rhythm Futures Group, where we do future forecasting, and we play world building games with educational facilities, corporations. And that the reason why I do that is all because of George. Like, he got me addicted to that type of thinking, and I just dove in.
Well, that was your podcast from a few years ago, right? When that's because
Yeah,
I remember
the
you were
podcast.
you were speaking to your friend from Stomp. She was, if I remember right, you were talking about the merging of AR and extending beyond just AR and VR at the time when the Quest was fairly new. I mean, I got my DK1 back in 2015. I can't remember. I got the Quest in 17 or 18. I can't remember, but yeah, it was right about the time when the Quest was first taken off, and I was fascinated by like how, and in terms of using VR for plays or anything, but is there a way to create even like how we're all now, we're all streaming, right? Talking to each other from 3 different places on the earth. Will there be a way to do VR theater or anything, even a movie, where 3 different people are just at their home filming their scenes, you know, like in a full 3D room?
You can
like,
do it now. With my company, Afro Rhythm Futures Group, we work with this company called Afterville on Altspace, and we have avatars, and we built this Zephyr, which lives in Afterville, and it's above this, you know, virtual reality space called the Grove of the Matriarchs. And we're tackling climate change through Afro Rhythms, which is our game that we created in this 3D space that is all, you know, virtual reality. So when you visit our Zephyr, it's like a virtual blimp that flies over this virtual space. You're in your space, but at home, and you're wearing the goggles, but you jump aboard our Zephyr. And in that Zephyr, you can take a tour, you can walk down, you can play our game in 3D. So we can use this stuff, and this technology is just going to get better and better, you know, to when our avatars will be able to look exactly like us. Like right now, it looks like, you know, video game characters kind of floating with no legs. But eventually, you know, you'll be able to create an avatar that looks damn near photorealistic, you know. They're kind of blending, you know, I'm working at, you know, I teach at the University of Southern California, and I'm starting to work with some folks over at Cinematic Arts about how exactly to do just this, right? To 3D map a space, 3D capture a person, and then add 2D photorealism to a 3D image. And it's in the very beginning stages of this, but, you know, the goal is the holodeck, right? Like that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the holodeck from Star Trek Next Gen. So it's coming. It's coming. And I think that's my stage manager. I gotta go. I think that's where we're all going. And I'm hoping that Ascension is like the first step.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to catching it. I have the fly right. When does it open up? Is it on the preview? Is on the 6th?
Yes, it opens on the 6th, October 6th.
October 6th.
At the Atwater Village Theater, the Echo Theater Company. It's in Los Angeles on Casitas in Atwater Village. Come check us out. It'll be trippy. It's a different theater experience. It's immersive. So come on and play with us. Don't just watch us play. Play with us.
I'm in. Thank you, Ahmed. I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate all of the work that you've given us as Star Wars fans. And thanks, man. And
thank you. We really do.
And have a great opening.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.